So we're on the road to Combe for the next round of their championships, and we're going to get back into doing proper videos for these races because it's been a long time since I've done them properly like this. So thank you to John that's behind the camera, and he'll be out there filming around the track today. My dad will be filming sporadically as well today and also the rest of the year. So yes, it should be good. Looking forward to getting back into making these videos properly. Today we're going to Combe just for their regular championships, nothing too special. I think the main thing that we're looking at today is that we had a warning light briefly come on the car, and we got one of the readers to try and understand what was going on with it, and then it hasn't showed up since. So we're not sure whether we want to see that light again to try and diagnose it or what, but currently it doesn't feel too bad. Touch wood that it all continues and goes to plan. But yeah, I think it should be a good day. We're just going to use it as testing, really. I mean, Combe is in a lot of ways quite good for testing, for us at least, because we've been there quite a bit. We know what sort of lap times we can do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today. There's also some really good racing out there alongside us. We've got obviously the Combe stuff, but we've also got TCR UK and also the Civic Cup. So this is probably Combe's biggest event of the year. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting out on track and seeing what I can do. Not really any expectations today. I think the main sort of events we've got are coming up in the next few weeks. So we've got two CMMCS rounds back to back, Brands GP next weekend, followed by Brands Indy the weekend after, which I'm looking forward to a lot. But we're just making sure that the car is sort of healthy as we go into those two rounds. Obviously they're, I'd say, a bit more important. We've got more of a chance of sort of battling with people in that one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today. Use it as some good testing, and yeah, I'll let you know as the day goes on how I'm feeling. But yeah, looking forward to this. This video is certainly one of contrasting emotions. Let's start with the good here at Combe on the 6th of August. Unfortunately, it didn't start too well with the DJI action camera failing, so we don't get the forward-facing version of my qualifying laps, but it didn't matter too much. We were just out on some old tyres, so it didn't really matter too much in terms of ultimate speed. Just some slower old tyres to get us through the qualifying session. I knew we were going to be near the back, so I wasn't really trying to put in a super quick lap in qualifying, just get used to the car once more and feel in a good place going to quali where we can bolt on some of the MRF tyres, which should be a bit quicker. So that's qualifying done here at Combe. Not actually too bad, considering we were on the worst tyres that we brought here today. We didn't have quite enough time to get over to the MRF tyres, which we were going to use for today. Not too bad. I think just checking my timing here, did a 21, which isn't terrible. Like, looking at where that would have put us in something like the hot hatches is not too bad. It's the first time I've ever driven this track on those tyres, so yeah, I'm actually not too disappointed with that. I mean, obviously we weren't expecting to be near the top of this grid anyway, so it didn't really matter, but yeah, good time out there in qualifying. We're going to put on the MRF tyres for the race. We've got two races here today, so the plan is just to try and make them feel good for the first race, and then second race hopefully we'll get them sort of in the sweet spot and maybe go for a good lap time. But yeah, I think my best lap round here is like an 18.9, I think. Obviously not especially quick, but yeah, I feel like that for me was near the edge. So that was on the other tyre. So these MRFs, I'd say, are a chunk slower, not a huge amount, but enough slower to warrant saying it. But yeah, qualifying went well. I'm looking forward to the race now. We've got some TCR UK, Civic Cup, and lots of other stuff to watch, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, looking forward to the race now. So I'm certainly looking forward to it. Some really interesting cars also out on track. There was a grid walk for the TCR UK, which was on the same weekend as us, so that was quite cool to go and just quickly have a quick look at. But we had two races to look forward to, so we couldn't stick around for too long. And this is our first race of the day. So interestingly for me, I wasn't at the back in qualifying. I think I had two cars behind me, maybe even three, so I was looking forward to this race actually. It was only supposed to be testing, I know that, but you sort of get sucked into the moment of going for a good race if you see one available to you. So obviously we're going to be left for dust from the cars behind, and Ray Ferguson, who's going to feature a lot in this video, goes for an overtake, but actually got a bit onto the grass as we went side by side through there. And if we look ahead, unfortunately the rear view mirror kind of obstructs us a bit here, but there's a car in the middle of the track rolling across the middle, so I have to take to the grass, and I'm a bit cautious on returning. This allows Ray, I think, to get around the outside of us here.
he took the wider line through the corner around the outside of the intermark and was able to keep the momentum up, so he blasted around the outside of me here. So I was a bit wary of these MRF tyres. They take a little while to get up to temperature. One green flag lap really probably wasn't enough to get them up to full operating temperature, so in these opening laps I was a little bit timid, which is always, I guess, something I do, not quick in the opening stages, which allowed me to drop behind Ray. But from this point onwards we would have actually a really good battle. Of course, two cars with two very different strengths. His is a lot quicker down the straight, and my car, of course, will be quicker through the corners. But it's interesting to also see the difference between front and rear wheel drive. Obviously I'm getting used to this car still. I'm not a master of it, and understanding its obscure way of driving sometimes, but as we're going through the first chicane here, you can see I'm definitely closing in on through here, and my car just seems a lot more planted through there. And I was trying to look up the inside here. Ray kind of misses the apex. I don't know whether he was letting me through or giving me a gap, but I couldn't make that one stick and had a slow exit. You can see here some of the slow motion. He was really out to gap me in the first couple of corners, but by the middle part of the lap we were closing in and actually going quite well. Actually, my lap times were coming down. Wasn't quite on the record pace for myself, obviously way off the record pace of everyone else, but my lap record pace, which I'm obviously aiming for every time I come to Castle Combe. I was a little bit frustrated there in the moment that that car in front sort of cut us off a bit. I don't know why. Looking back at it, didn't do anything wrong. I guess it's just one of those things, whilst you're racing, little things can sometimes irritate you, and that was obviously one of those things. On reflection, it didn't really matter whatsoever. So down the main straight, going down into Quarry Corner. I think we're about halfway through the race at this point. Do my best to catch up with Ray, but you can see he's still there. He's about a second and a half in front. On the brakes into Quarry, definitely catching up through here, and actually got a really good run through here. But the power kicks in, and look, down towards the first chicane I just don't have enough speed to catch back up to him. So you can see I'm definitely closing in. I'm definitely taking the more optimal lines through the corners, but I just can't carry enough momentum through here to get an overtake done. And a lot of the time around Castle Combe, a tight section is followed by a long straight, so if I did get past in the corner, he'd be able to get past me in the following straight. The only part where you could say there isn't a long straight in between corners is here. So the first chicane up to this quick next section. I think this is this old paddock? I really should know the corners, shouldn't I? And we get a good run through here, but then I just can't carry the momentum. But if I had a better run through the first chicane, a good run through that second part, I might be able to get the overtake done, but I'm just struggling because of the straights, which are just long enough for Ray to hold on to that lead, even if I did get a better run through the corners. And of course I'm also aware at this same point here that he's in a very expensive car. Obviously my car's not like cheap, but at the same time his car is probably worth 10-15 times the amount of mine. So I was wary at that point that just don't do anything too silly here, Alex. At the end of the day, we're just here for testing. We're just here to get laps and make sure the car's feeling right for the next few weeks at Brands Hatch with the CMMZS. So I didn't want to end up into the back of a Ferrari by doing something silly. And I think unfortunately for Ray, he has an issue here. So he pulls off to the side and I get a few clear laps in at the end. But to be honest, I don't think I'd have been able to get past if he'd kept going. But his retirement saw me get out of position and come round to take the checker flag a few laps later. And actually wasn't last on track as well. Obviously I normally am last on track in GTs. Even though I'm only just doing this as a testing experience, I normally am just at the back by myself, but I was actually quite far ahead of the next car behind, so that was a bit of a confidence booster at least not being the last car to finish is always a nice thing. So around the final corner, we actually put off some pretty good laps at the end there, and you can see a bit of a fist pump to myself where I set a decent lap times. It was sort of towards the low 19s, so I was pretty happy with that, and that left me with a little bit to go for in the second race, try and improve on that, but overall pretty happy with how race 1 went.
So that's race 1 done here at Castle Combe, and pretty happy with that actually. I mean, I've always struggled a bit with this track, but I think we recently put in some padded brakes, brake pads, and I think they've sort of revolutionised that a little bit. I feel like I've got a bit more confidence on the brakes, and obviously that's something really important around Castle Combe. So yeah, I felt like I had that, a bit more stability under the brakes, which was great. I mean, those pads were like quite a bit more money than the ones I'd been running before, so I guess you kind of expect that, but I think around a track like this that's really important. So I guess happy with that upgrade. We're on the MRF tyres for that one as well, which obviously gave us a chunk more performance. I mean, in that qualifying session we did like a mid 21, and yeah, we're about 2 seconds quicker in the first race of the day. So I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. I was having a great battle with Ray Ferguson in his Ferrari 355. He had the measure of me for the most part of that race, but then he had I guess an adventure, you'd say, on the first lap of the race where he had to go onto the grass ever so slightly, and he just said that disrupted the bonnet in a way that he had to pull into the pits and retire from that. So that was a shame. We're having a good battle. It's interesting when you're quicker in one part of the track and then they're quicker in the other part of the track, really trying to maximise the time around the circuit. I was finding that I was definitely quicker through the middle sector, so through the first chicane, then all the way down to the second chicane, Bobby's. I'd say I had just a measure on him there, but then through the last corner and down the main straight, he definitely was quicker than me. So yeah, it was a really good battle until that point. He pulled over and let me pass. So yeah, even though it would have been great to finish that battle, it was good for my lap times. I think I managed to set my fastest lap on the last lap, so that was great. But yeah, our last race is the last race of the day. Hopefully we'll get it in. I think the curfew's at 6:30, so all things going well should mean that's fine. But yeah, there's some races where some stuff could happen coming up next. So hopefully we'll be good. Let's go.
Thankfully we were all good. Obviously minor incidents in the other race, bits of debris to be picked up and so on, but thankfully we were able to get our last race in. It's always a worry when you're the last race of the day that something will happen, which means that it doesn't happen, which actually does happen in one of the future episodes, unfortunately. But regardless, we're here. You can see a nice mix of cars that are out there. Of course, there's a big performance disparity between the front of the pack and the back of the grid where I was, so you can see Ray in the yellow Ferrari there, and the Escort, the blue Escort, was the one I managed to beat in that first race quite comfortably. So here we go, down to the first corner once more. I'm going to do my best this time to have good enough run out the last corner to keep Ray behind, but I was sort of focused in front of me here, and I was able to keep the momentum down to the first corner and have a good run and stay ahead of Ray. So in my mind that was sort of mission accomplished. I thought from this point I'd be able to sort of pull away. Not that I was doing any sort of special pace, but I thought from the first race I'd be able to start to pull away. I had the consistent laps to do so, but it wasn't the case. In the early stages I was able to stay ahead of Ray, but then a few laps in he really started to get momentum. He started to set some really decent lap times, and then I saw him in my rearview mirror pretty close as we go to the last sequence of corners. So at this point here I think I start to defend. Yeah, I pulled to the inside here because I don't want it to blast up the inside. I thought it's probably a bit harder for him to take the overtake around the outside, so I'd discover the inside line. Even though I don't normally take that line into camp, I will hopefully have a good enough run. But yeah, by defending that inside line, it meant that he managed to get a better run through the outside and just get past me down the straight. So on reflection, not really sure what I'm doing here. Seem to have just thrown away a position myself there by aggressively defending, or defending too hard. So it is what it is. I've lost that place. Now I'm going to set my sights on trying to get that position back. I know where I'm quicker, and Ray actually seems to have picked up the pace since that first race as well. A bit more confident. The sort of heat on the day was quite extreme. It wasn't by far the hottest day in the UK, but it was a hot one. So he was struggling in a car like that, which is much more physical than my car, for example. This is actually probably one of the easier cars I drive in terms of physicality. I've driven that Saxo, which is certainly not an easy car to drive. It's all over the place, and I assume something the Ferrari is multiple times harder than that. So doing best here through the first sequence of corners. Managed to keep hitting these apexes, which was good. I knew my pace was okay. These MRF tyres don't have quite the pace of the AR ones, which I set my fastest lap on in 2021, so I haven't been able to really match it this year when I've been on the MRF tyres. But I think being in a battle like this really sort of egged me on to keep going faster and faster, and I knew if I got past I could set a pretty decent lap time here. I was kind of feeling like doing quite well, and being on old MRF tyres up against newish AR1 tyres for when I set my best lap, I think comparatively I was doing quite good, which I was really happy about throughout the day. So at this point, just struggling to catch up with Ray, and I think at this point I kind of felt like I'm not going to be able to get this overtake in, so do I just drop back and just try and set a good lap time? Because at the end of the day that's kind of what I was going for. But I'm glad I didn't in some ways, because even though you can see here I am starting to back off, I don't go full throttle into this last sequence of corners. I give myself a gap to try and go for a quick one. Now, I really wanted to beat my result from the first race, which I think was sort of a mid-19, which is okay, like nothing special. I'm sure this car could go a lot quicker than that. I know that myself. I'm just here to have fun at the end of the day. As we lapped a few cars, the leaders actually go by to lap us, and I thought maybe this would distract Ray a little bit, and we do actually catch up a bit through here. But yeah, on my lap times, I think a big aim for me was to try and get into the 18s at some point this year, but so many missed opportunities to go for that. Unfortunately, we've not really been anywhere near it this year. And I know that's not good. I know we should be easily into those 18s with this car, but just struggling to get everything together. And through this first part of the lap, through letting the leaders by and so on, I've actually managed to catch up to Ray quite a bit here, and I just can't get the momentum when I need it. It's a bit frustrating, but at the same time, it's part of having a really good race, is being in moments like this where you're like, I can get him here, but he's much quicker here, so how am I going to maximise this benefit that I do have? So yeah, it was playing on my mind here. I know that I didn't really beat him in the first race because he let me go essentially. And at this point I'm backing off again to give myself a bit of a gap, so you can see I was just sort of short shifting. I think I brake really early here to try and give myself a gap, and then a good run through the last corner, but it didn't pay off. It didn't actually end up being a very good lap, and you can see he's actually starting to pull away from me a little bit. So I needed to get my head down, and we did start putting in some somewhat consistent lap times and get down towards the lower 19s. You can see I'm definitely starting to push a bit more now, close to the limits. I'm hitting the apexes, and I'm actually sort of feeling like I'm in the zone. So can I go and get this position? Well, Ray goes wide, I think possibly misses a gear here. I go past and charge through and get the overtake in. And I was like, at this point, oh wait, what's next? We got a camp corner, and then we got the long straight down to the quarry. He's just going to blast straight back past me, isn't he? But no, thankfully I had a good enough run through camp and across the line, and actually did enough to stay ahead, which I was happy about. So stayed ahead, and then I went ahead and set my fastest lap with a few laps to go. So let's watch this. So into camp once more, trying to set myself up for a good one, hitting that apex on the inside, but not too much, but it throws me wide onto the grass on the left hand side. So just shifting gears. Actually, weirdly enough, I don't get into 6th gear in many places. I'm not even sure whether I get into 6th gear at Snetterton at the end of the back straight, which is mad. I think the ratios on this gearbox aren't particularly set up for racing, which is weird. I don't know when you'd use 6th gear in many of these opportunities, but because it loves to rev, I guess you can just keep it in 5th. But regardless, good enough run there through quarry and into the first chicane. You can see a little bit tail happy on entry, but nothing too big. Hit that bump quite well actually through there. Quite happy with the run through the first chicane. And overall, this looks like a pretty solid lap so far. I was using the Race Logic Touch, which we've mentioned many times on this channel. A great bit of kit that's really been helping me out in this second half of the season. And I saw that I was up. And at this point, you're like, just don't mess it up, don't mess it up, don't mess it up. And I was actually really quite quick, and I messed up a little bit through there. And then I also messed up at camp, the final corner. So there was definitely time in here to get more pace out of it. A few more tenths of a second were surely available to me here, but I braked a bit too early going into camp, which lost me some time, which obviously frustrated me, but I wanted to be safe. I wanted to try and beat my best lap from the last race, and I guess by braking a bit too early through there, I cost myself a little bit of time. But generally happy here. That was the best lap. I got down to the low 19s. I think it was a 19.1 or a 19.2, so really happy with that. Just a couple of tenths away from my best ever lap around Castle Combe. So yeah, can't be disappointed with that. Really good end to the day here, and was super happy with how the result ended out, and really fun day at Castle Combe. Some important testing. Had a good chat with Ray just here after the race, and we also had a chat a little bit later on as well. Some great characters at Castle Combe. One of the big reasons why I love coming back. But now for my post-race debrief. So we're now driving back from Castle Combe after, I'd say, a pretty successful day, considering our worries at the start of the day. You know, was the car going to be able to get to the finish? We weren't sure about the engine light, whether it was going to start coming on again, but I didn't see it at all the whole day, so I guess that's a successful day in itself. Maybe that problem will reoccur in the time where it's sat on the driveway in the next few days. Who knows, but I hope that isn't the case. I feel that we have hopefully got to the bottom of that, and hopefully we can move on to the next one and have a good time. But
yeah, really enjoyed it here today. I had a really good race there again with Ray in his Ferrari. It's great to sort of have the parallels. Obviously he's really quick in the straights, but then he's got a much heavier car to slow down, so sort of really struggling to stop the car, and then through some of the tight and twisty bits, both the chicanes mainly, he was sort of struggling to keep the momentum going through there, understandably, because the car's obviously so heavy. But yeah, really good fun out there. I mean, I think he made a slight mistake. I'd kind of given up on getting past him, but then he made a slight mistake in the second chicane about 3/4 of the way through the race, and yeah, I guess I was just close enough to look to the outside going to the final corner. I think he sort of backed off a little bit to make sure that it wasn't sketchy going to the last corner. So yeah, I appreciate that, because obviously you're never really sure when someone's at camp. When you're going into camp, it's always a bit unnerving. You've got someone down the inside about what's going to happen. But yeah, I think all good, really enjoyable race there. I guess you couldn't really have picked too much different cars to be racing against each other, but we had some fantastic battles out there, which I really enjoyed. Got my lap time down, so I think I got down to 19.2, so I think that's 2 or 3 tenths off what I've done on my best tyres. So I'd probably say, all things considered, on those tyres, that was probably maybe the best lap I've done around Castle Combe. I think there's a bit of time to be gained in those tyres. So yeah, I'm really happy with today. Obviously, confidence fulfilling to sort of put together some good laps there at the end of the day. And yeah, really looking forward to the weeks ahead. Today we were using sort of a new device, or well, I say new, we've had it a few weeks now. It's the Race Logic dash that we've put down by the car dash, and it's really been helpful about understanding where I'm gaining bits of time, where I'm sort of maybe backing off a bit too much, and then lap on lap it's a really good, interesting learning process. It's kind of like having an instructor in some ways. You try something different and then it rewards you with it, or shows you the reward of a good sector, I guess. And yeah, so I think that helped me improve throughout the day as well. So I really appreciate Race Logic sending that out to me, and hopefully we'll be using that into the future. So yeah, awesome stuff, really enjoyed it. We're probably gonna get home around 11:30 after a quick stop for some food. So yeah, super day. Massive thanks to my dad who helped at the track, John, who's been filming out there all today as well, really appreciated. And yeah, everyone at Castle Combe put on a good show. Good stuff with the TCR as well. That was good fun to watch.
So we've talked about the good part of this video. Now for the more unfortunate part. So Brands Hatch GP, a track that I've wanted to drive my whole life, a track that I absolutely love on racing games and so on. It's my local track, but to drive the GP circuit is a big thing because it doesn't come about too often, and for I guess a small club like the CMMCS, it was really good for us to have that opportunity. A big grid of cars, loads of different classes. Of course, I've had the opportunity of being towards the front of my class this year, which has been awesome, but I realised around a track like Brands Hatch GP, possibly that advantage would be eroded because I don't know the track at all. Well, I guess I know the main bit, but I don't know the GP bit. So I was thinking that possibly Ian, who's had some laps around here in the past, might have a bit of an advantage on me here. So unfortunately, we didn't get too many good laps in qualifying that the camera captured. I was using this DJI camera again, so I thought, okay, let's give it a go. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's going to be decent. But no, it failed again. So the only footage we have of qualifying is me essentially letting cars past, preparing for my quick lap. I sent myself out on the old tyres, the Nankang NS2R tyres. They're not great, unfortunately. I think for track days they'd be fantastic, but for racing, I don't think you'd ever use them unless you were using them in a spec series, which of course then they'd be completely fine. But yeah, they don't really deliver ultimate pace, but they are really cheap. That's something. I'm actually a big fan of the Nankang brand. The AR ones are some fantastic tyres. I guess these NS2R tyres are they're sort of baseline tyre. They're cheap tyre to get into racing, into track days. They're pretty okay, but not really for racing. I think if you want to race, you'd have to go and look elsewhere. Something like the MRFs would still be a couple of seconds quicker. So anyway, get my excuse out of the way. My lap time in qualifying wasn't fantastic, but I think would get class pole by a few tenths of a second, which I wasn't too disappointed about, but in general it was what I kind of expected. So thanks again to John actually for these outside shots, some really cool shots of us. But before we had really time to think, we changed tyres over to the AR1s, and we're looking forward to the race. So you can see what a great mix of cars there are for this event at Brands Hatch. You can see we've got WRC cars, NASCARs, we got cars that would be on the touring car package, and then you've got towards the pack, you got pretty standard cars like myself. And yeah, it's actually nice to sort of be, we definitely weren't mid-pack, but we were ahead of a good chunk of sort of saloon cars, which was cool. And at least I knew at that point that I wasn't really slow, and hopefully would go a good amount quicker on the AR1 tyres for this first race of the day. So everyone seems to back up before the start-finish line, and I think initially that was giving me the thought that someone was going to dive it up the inside of me here, but thankfully no one did overtake me. I actually did have Ian, who was sort of racing within class in his Ford Fiesta. He was up my inside into turn 1, but I managed to sort of keep it around the outside, and you can see in my mirror someone's trying to dive it up the inside into Druid. I tried to take the wide line through here, and I think the Golf, oh no, it's actually one of the little Seats gets past me here and sort of brakes quite early into here and sort of backs me up, and don't get a very good run out of here because of that. He's obviously quite quick in a straight line, that Seat, but not very good through the corners. So yeah, kind of blocked us through there. And I think, is there a car diving up the inside here? I think it's one of those little Golfs. Yeah, it's that little Golf which should be quite near the front. That car's got an insane amount of power. So not a very good opening lap, lost a couple of positions there, but I think the way that the rolling start happened, it didn't really help us out too much there. But at this point, get my head down and try and catch up to these guys in front, because I know on these tyres I should go a lot quicker. So that was in my mind, that I should be able to overtake some of these guys relatively quickly, or at least keep with them, because actually there was a bit of a gap in quality to the cars in front. So okay, mediocre, actually not very good opening lap, let's be honest. So now at this point it was about trying to catch up to these guys, and the Golf, the white Golf you can see just in front, and that red Seat Ibiza, I think, both very quick in a straight line, but not very good through the corners. So you can see through corners like this, we're getting them so quickly. So that was a tough run through there, lost a bit of time, a bit of a shake of the head, not because of anything happening in front, just because I got such a bad run through the corner. So at this point I was like, get your head down, Alex. We got Ian quite close behind us. We've actually got some footage here just to show you what it was like from the outside. So this is the first lap, so you can see there's me, and then there's Ian just behind. He's sort of my main competitor, along with James in the other blue Fiesta there. They're the two sort of competitors within my class, class TP in the CMMCS. And obviously Ian was on a good day here. He has driven Brands Hatch GP before, and I think was really in the zone. He was putting in some really good lap times. So I guess he was the main one I was looking forward to racing in this one. But I was hoping on my tyres that I'd have the opportunity to stay ahead. Straight line speed between me and Ian isn't that much different. I do have more speed at the end of the straight. So the end of this straight, the end of well, down Pilgrim's Drop, I definitely have the speed through here. But there and down into turn 1 Paddock Hill, I definitely have speed advantage on Ian, but for the rest of the lap it's about the same. So top end I'm definitely quicker than the Fiesta, but elsewhere it's relatively similar. I'm not sure what that is to do with the gear ratios that we mentioned earlier, but regardless, these opening laps went quite well, and I started to pull away from the cars behind. It was nice to start pulling a gap on the cars behind. There actually was a NASCAR coming from the very back of the grid that I didn't set a lap time at all in qualifying, that I knew was going to be quick. And as we head down into here, keeping up relatively with these cars in front, so I was quite happy with that. At this point, definitely not pushing to 100%. I guess in my mirrors I see that I'm pulling away from the cars behind, so I know this is a good place to be. I'm not pushing too much, and if I need to pick up the pace I can do. So it was a good sort of middle ground to be in at this point of the race. So all was going quite well at this point, really enjoying it, in the class lead, setting some decent lap times, trying to chase down these cars in front. Liam in the blue Saxo, which we've seen before many times on this channel, he was the guy I was sort of looking for in front, because I know my straight line advantage over him should be decent. But you can see something is starting to go wrong here. I don't know whether you noticed it, but there was a bit of a vibration at the end of that straight there. So at that point I was like, okay, whatever, it's probably just a bit of bodywork flapping about. And you can see Adrian Matthews is having an issue here in his Volvo. It's a big shame. He'd actually come back through afterwards. I think he kind of pulled to the side there, hence why I said thank you. But yeah, he had an issue, so we got past him, keeping up with the cars in front. At this point, I don't think anything's wrong. I said a bit of bodywork flapping around, and then there's a yellow flag as another car has gone off. I say another car, I think this is the first incident we've had, so unfortunate there, one of the other Honda Civics has gone off, and I lost a bit of time through the yellow flag zone. Quite a chunk of time actually there, probably about 2 or 3 seconds to the car in front through that yellow flag zone, so slowed up too much through there. But now let's have a listen here as we go down the main straight. Let me know if you hear anything not quite right as we go down to turn 1. Quite a bit of vibration, right? At this point, it didn't really put me off too much. As I said, I thought it was just a bit of bodywork flapping around. And look in front here, actually, you see that white goal fly off and into the inside grass. I think he managed to get going again, actually, thankfully for him. I think he slightly tapped the tyres, but didn't hit it hard enough to retire. So, at this point, pretty good. I'm thinking just a bit of bodywork flapping, but this is when we realise it. Listen to this noise right now. I think at this point I still thought, oh, it's probably bodywork, but you can see that I'm checking the left-hand side. I definitely knew it was coming from the left-hand side. But what is it on the left-hand side? Is it a bit of bodywork flapping around? And you can see here the slow motion, really great actually. You can see it's the tyre. For some reason I thought it was the rear left tyre. And at this point, I think it was here right now, I was like, okay, this is a puncture. I know this is a puncture. What do I do? I've never been in this situation before. But right at the end of this race, do I just finish the race? I mean, I knew I'd needed to back off, and I knew I'd need to be slower, but at this point, I still thought it was the rear left tyre, and I thought, okay, we've got both front wheels to drive it. It was the front left tyre all along. I think I realised that possibly on the last corner, which we'll see soon, but an incredibly frustrating situation where I thought I should just finish it. I'll be fine to just finish it, surely. We'll just chuck on a new tyre and we'll be fine. But yeah, it was pretty bad by this point. I didn't know what to do. I was obviously just being safe and staying out of everyone's way. You know, at the best of times I'm too cautious, so at this point I was just being ultra cautious, just letting everyone by. There's still this yellow flag out for the Honda, so just trying to make it through out this corner without ended up in the gravel with him. And yeah, at this point I was like, definitely a puncture. I think I realised it by the last lap of the race. It was definitely a puncture. But then, look at this. The last corner. Look how slow I'm going. And look how close I get to the gravel. Look how much lock I'm putting on. I nearly end up in the gravel. I was so frustrated. Not with anyone, just myself. I should have brought it in. I should have retired from this first race. It was stupid to continue once I knew I had a puncture right at the end of the last lap. I should have just pulled off on the last lap of the race. But yeah, I thought it would be okay to finish. But at least I know for the future, let's not do that. So yeah, here was the damage. Destroyed tyre. And the rim was a bit damaged as well. Not crazily damaged. It should be repairable, but yeah, incredibly frustrated, and hopefully you can understand, didn't really want to do an outro. The disc also cracked. I'm not sure that was because of the puncture or what, but I'm assuming it was because of the puncture of the vibration. So yeah, I still don't know to this day what exactly happened. We think we ran over some debris and that was the cause, but I still run through this in my head. What actually happened? How do we get this puncture? But one of those things, I think it's always going to happen in motorsport. You're going to have these little things that unfortunately happen. So it was just one of those days, and unfortunately for us, fortunately we finished. Not great, we still finished third in class, which I guess kind of helps from our series championship, but didn't start the second one, which I guess was an even bigger loss. So that's a shame, but regardless, we look forward to next week where we're going endurance racing at Brands Hatch and also some Castle Combe action as well. So we'll see you then. Goodbye.